Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Tuesday morning over here from a very sunny and like too sunny now, Helsinki, Finland. Anyways, a few things to talk about today. I want to follow up on the short-term time frame move that we were speaking about from yesterday, now happening in the early morning hours today, and then also reference the higher-term time frame as well. I'm going to save like a full analysis on the more macro situation, probably for the weekend, because very little's changed there. But by that time, we might have a few new things to be speaking about. If you're interested in such things, definitely go check out the weekend's video, which was focused on long-term analysis. All right, cool. So with that in mind, I am going to swing back into the Krown trading application a little bit later within the context of this analysis. There are a few actually very, very interesting things over here, but first I want to kind of set the tone with the chart of the day, if you will. So we've been following several charts, but I wanted to bring out another one right here, of which we're going to talk about the daily stochastic momentum oscillator, of which we did get the critical closure above 40,000 bucks, I believe it was yesterday, in order to keep upside momentum in play and also reject essentially trending towards the bearish control zone. Obviously, this is in the neutral zone right here, but getting another upside twist is going to be obviously, you know, quote unquote good. And there's a very important signal that's going on that is still in its infancy and has actually not been confirmed just yet, but would be the next sort of major thing that I'm looking for to essentially have, you know, higher targets for price action. So what is the signal essentially? Well, first and foremost, we see that volatility is very, very low here, and also the ADX is very, very low. These two are looking for expansion. So when they contract into very low regions like this, it implies that the resolution after that contraction phase into the next expansion phase is going to be, you know, rather potent, if you will. And also the momentum oscillators on this particular indicator, both the stochastic right here, which is obviously pointed up, and the DMI are already in upside position. So that obviously increases the probability of an upside continuation as long as these conditions are met over here. 40,200 is going to be the magical number on the daily, and 38,660 the magical condition for again the daily but for DMI. Anyways, as long as those two things stay consistent, I do still put the probabilities in the favor of the Bula side, and of course that plays into the 5-day analysis as well. Keep in mind, this is specifically for CME, not for spot price action. Spot price action shows a bit of a different look over here, but as always, when it comes to Monday and Tuesday, I do trust CME signals more than spot price action. And also, for what it's worth, on spot, we actually see this signal, well, it's, you know, still remain with upside momentum. What I would say, however, though, is that if that starts turning down, if we start to see the volatility indicators turn up, that would be a bit more concerning. But for right now, all good in the hood, at least as it would seem. So let's now go into the short-term timeframes, and then we'll swing back around and reference perhaps momentum for those. But in this case right here, we've had this area marked off at 42,600 as a major area for essentially continuation to new upside targets. Essentially this blue box area right here between 44 and 45,000 bucks. Looks like we did actually get a closure above there on the short-term timeframes, like the hourly. Let me just double check. That would be 42.6. Yeah, we did right there, and got pretty damn close to that target in general. But this was essentially a continuation call based off of yesterday's short-term time frame analysis, which was range and then likely another try higher, which is what we're getting right here. So I know that a lot of people are looking at this as a rejection right now. To be fair, you know, you can say that absolutely, especially when you get brought up above even a short-term time frame resistance like this at 42.6, and then, you know, seemingly about to close below in just 1 minute and 8 seconds as the clock ticks down. So we'll very likely see it right here, right now. But ultimately, I would actually still have the probabilities in the Bula's favors for a time frame like this, and I'd even move up the point of failure in this case as well to no longer 39,900, but for a 4-hour about 40,500 in this case right here, or an hourly below about 40,000 bucks even or so, or 40,200 if you want to be super exact. And you'll notice that directly lines up with the daily stochastic momentum on CME specifically for keeping momentum to the upside right here. So those two things obviously do play with each other, and you know, we do expect kind of volatility around these regions, obviously pertinent towards these time frames. And I believe that we're actually going to see this continue into the later part of today, probably sometime around that the US market opens. I think that there will be another try to the upside. We do see extremely low volatility on the 4-hour, and it is going for an expansion right here, and it's actually been essentially trending lower, contracting into like several downside phases basically since March, early March. Obviously, it's still March. And then on top of that, we do see a couple drives of hidden bullish evidence right here in the 4-hour RSI, just getting back into the bullish control zone. So I don't think that this try is actually necessarily over. I think you're probably going to see a bit more of a range here, maybe even another try back down slightly below 42,000 bucks, and there it is. And then perhaps one more try to the upside, and also a 4-hour jewel should be known as well. That is posture to the upside, bouncing off that fib support right there, but well, fair enough. Anyways, moving on, I would still have essentially the same analysis on this. Preferably, I do want to see a 4-hour closure above that 42.6 region. And then, yes, I would be saying the same thing as yesterday. Targets between about 44 and 45,000 bucks, which is very much relevant. And then obviously for the opposite side, we do need to overlay some invalidation conditions. In this case, very, very simply put, anywhere below this last higher low right here, if you want to be super conservative, like I kind of am right now, 40,200 is where I'd be looking for. If you want to be a little more aggressive, 40,600 or so. And you've seen that we've slowly but surely marched these up, in the past couple weeks here as Bitcoin, proved itself. And this is just the unsexy nature of trading, but that is, that's a lot of the time it's quite literally that simple. Just requires some fucking patience, which is actually quite difficult to do. Anyways, what I should check out is lower term time frame momentum. Let's see what the 4 hours is looking like right now. 4 hour stochastic momentum remains the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 41.8. So again, I think that we could very, very easily have a pullback somewhere down around there. But if you are looking for this to continue, you probably do expect, a bounce from that region. Again, things come into question, especially below here, and I would start to front run, break down back down to the bottom side of the range, which I didn't even talk about targets if the invalidation does happen. Again, there's very, very likely to be bounced along the way, namely somewhere in the low $39,000 region, that being 39.2 to 39.3 or so. And then below there, well, I do look for a full-on move back down to this blue box territory, kind of playing coast to coast at around 37, let's call it, give or take 500 bucks from that area. Anyways, in this case, if I'm just giving my general thoughts here, because again, I feel like right now in the market, things are rather quiet. The only people who are paying attention are the people who, probably put in a little bit more effort to, understand more nuanced, non-black and white topics. But, if I'm just giving my, my ideas right here, probably something like this. Tries for another higher low, and then maybe one more try to the upside, and that next one should be very, very telling if we're actually gonna bust on through it or not. If it does bust, hey, great, looking at targets back up towards the top side of the multi-month range. And again, the reason why that is very much relevant, do I really want to go into this yet again? But, might as well touch onto it right here. Why 44,500 on a daily closure or $45,000 on a 4-hour closure is important is because I would start to confirm more deep upside targets, confirming this as one major weekly low, thus confirming, at the same time, a higher low, and also a bullish reaccumulation formation in the format of an ascending triangle, which has a technical target all the way up towards $56,000. Also in line with the 3.272 Fibonacci extension, and also would be a natural target based off of the, I'm gonna guess we still don't have it actually over here. But if Bitcoin does close, I think above 42.5 or 43,000 bucks on the next weekly, we should have another drive of hidden bullish evidence right here, also rejecting the bearish control zone, and that would have shallow targets towards 51,000 bucks, let's say, and then more aggressive ones, which have a lower probability of being hit, to be fair, somewhere around that $56,000, $57,000 region. So do keep that in mind. And I think that does it for that. What I did want to reference right here, though, is the daily. The daily is actually doing some rather interesting right here. And I'd even go as far as saying that as long as the daily is above $41,000, I do look at this as, not a lot more likely to move to the upside than the downside. And I'd even go as far as saying that if the daily closes below, say not exactly 41,000, but about 40,800. I do think that the downside is front runnable in this case as well. But for right now, we actually still don't have we don't necessarily have a higher high just yet. I want to see really things close above 42.6 or so. What about the 2-day? Did we close one of those last night? We did. I don't really get anything obvious here that already hasn't been spoken about. And then the 5-day also closed last night as well. So maybe we should do a perusal of the volatility versus momentum chart over here. I'll just briefly run through this yet again. And I actually do think that there's something very important to now talk about now that I bring it up. So let me run through this explanation as fast as possible. Basically, BBWP, measuring volatility, which measures the dispersion of returns, correlates to, within the context of this indicator, the same areas that we've been hitting over the past couple months here, or sorry, not past couple months, past year and a half, going back to our April area over here. And yeah, we can do this further back as well, but just wanted to focus on these ones because they're more, visually apparent. And anytime we've gotten into like the mid-teens or so for this indicator, we've seen the expansion phases from that region as producing, very similar price action in the terms of the severity of it, which is, what volatility essentially measures. To cut to the chase here, basically, whenever we've seen things get down that low. For the BBWP, we do see an average of about 45% movement from that, from that precipice. Obviously, it can come to both the upside or the downside. That's what we're going to use a momentum oscillator to kind of get a bias on. But in this case right here, you can see that the results have been quite consistent over the past year and a half or so. About 40 days on average, let's say, for about 45% gain or loss. Do we have 2 iterations to the downside, 2 iterations to the upside? Yes, again, we can go back even further in time and test out more things, but in this case, I think this kind of gets the point across. Anyways, what I've already done is I have forecasted what the targets would be if you were to add or subtract about 45% to current price action. That would put Bitcoin at about $56,000 to the upside versus $23,000 to the downside. So what are the triggers for these sort of moves? Well, to the upside, I would say above about $45,000 or 44 and a half on a daily is essentially where I start to look for that, alongside the other reasons that we just kind of considered earlier with those technical setups. To the downside, if you want to go by the book, $37,000 is the obvious area. I do think this is going to start to be front runnable below about 38.5 now because of yesterday's closure. Anyways, what we can use to kind of get a further bias on the direction of this price action is the stochastic momentum oscillator and the RSI as well. But in this case, I've already highlighted these same iterations over here with the green vertical bars that correlate with those low BBWP areas. Basically, when the stochastic was, angled towards the downside and getting out of the bullish control zone, that was your downside displeasures right here and right here. And opposite for the upside, working its way out of the bearish control zone and angled up, that was your July bear trap. And then your October high or low at 40,000. And then what do you know? The more recent one that we, by the way, got, I think, even lower, at least than the past 3 iterations, maybe even all of them. Let's see, this one was 10.71. This is 12.7. Yeah, so this is not the lowest, but it is, it's among the lowest essentially. Anyways, this one is obviously headed towards the upside and working its way out of the bearish control zone, rather similar towards the July bear trap iteration. And here's the thing with this new tick that we got, the conditions for forcing that cross to the downside have changed, obviously, as they naturally will. It's no longer $37,000. It's moved up more than $2,000 to $39,330 or so. So I'd keep an eye on that region. I'd go as far as say any sort of a higher term time frame closure below there, very likely going to see the probabilities drastically increase in the favor of the downside. And, personally, I would think that things probably do fall down from there. Also should be known, as I make sure that my phone's working, so that's good, is this chart right here, 5-day RSI. Basically, when it's around the bullish control zone, good. When it's around the bearish control zone or rejecting the bullish control zone, bad. So in this case, it's working its way up towards the 50 mark, the neutral zone. It's actually not too much to make out of that right there. But the new piece of information that I wanted to pull up right here is that it looks like we're seeing the first etching of expansion from here. So again, keep in mind that the full result of this takes on average about 40 days, let's say. That's more than a month away. So I don't expect this to happen like today or tomorrow. I expect to see like the early etchings of this move, kind of this week probably, and then a little bit more around end of this month, and then very likely around the midpoint of next month, April. But in this case right here, we're getting our first upside tick there from yesterday to today, this new tick, and it's just around the moving average on it as well. So you can see that when all of these got their first upside slope, they typically do fall through with that, and the volatility expansion does come from there. So I'd say that that is, again, another point in favor of the Bulaw's court here. Again, I can talk about major downside targets. Obviously, I still think that it's worth talking about. $23,000 is certainly on the board. But for right now, the upside does look a little more favorable. Short-term timeframes, again, it's like, well, we've already gone through that, so, don't need to do that again. But basically, I wouldn't really entertain, major downside possibilities until Bitcoin's, closing below those regions, at least 39,000 or so. I'd personally say 38,500 now would be kind of my line in the sand for saying, hey, major downside is very, very likely after that point in the following month or two. But for right now, the best that I can do for downside is just, being aware of these facts, of which the monthly MACD crossed the downside, plus price action on the monthly losing the white 20 simple on the chart right here has always led towards a move towards the green 55. Guess where that is? 23 to 24,000 bucks. Of course, we already did the percent forecast on that as well, in the sense that, well, that would be essentially a 45% move to the downside from a current price action. So in this case right here, just kind of following through with all of the analysis, hopefully keeping it as consistent as possible over the past well, hopefully like as long as possible. But I think we've had like a really good thread of analysis, especially over the past couple months here. Anyways, and I'll just give one shout out to the people in the program here. I wanted to call out this what's it called? I wanted to call it the signal because there's a really good Krown cross that I think maybe it was Nimbo who called it out in the program. I don't know who, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I have it in my mind that it was Nimbo. Anyways, here's a pretty damn good example of a Krown cross right here, where you do have basically the 9 above the 21 above the 55, comes down between the 21 and the 55, sets in a higher low on very low volatility with hidden bullish divergence, and then up again. So obviously this is like a scalpable move, but that's kind of what you're looking for essentially. So if you're on the program and you're kind of looking for an example of that, that's yet again another fucking example right in front of your face. And it's not always going to work out, but the probabilities are on your favor if you do take those setups over time, at least in the back to the testing that I've done myself. So I wouldn't be surprised again if things do come down, maybe test around there. But again, if you are bullish, I do think that was your next higher low at about 41 or so. I guess a little bit below that, 40,800. So yeah, I hope that was in some way helpful. Essentially a long way of saying, yeah, I'm probably looking for Bitcoin to give at least one more try to the upside. Working off these short-term time frame extreme conditions, and a break above about 42.6. And yeah, I'm looking for that next move towards 44.45, and that obviously puts the daily in a really, really strong position to potentially break that next major level. Other than that, I'm just trying to think, is there anything very obvious that I'm missing? No, I think that's it right now. Is there maybe something on the 5-day right here? No. What about CME? Also no. The 5-day will have a chance to get another drive of hidden bullish evidence if it does, close above about 44, but it's a little bit further away. And I guess also it should be known that the 5-day RSI getting back above the exponential, not a bad thing as well as a rejection of the bearish control zone. This may be like one last thing if I really wanted to bring this up. Should I even talk about this? Nah, fuck it. There's no need to talk about it. All right. Cool. All right. That's going to do it for today. I want to take a second to wish you well yet again. Keep those areas in mind, and hopefully this information was in some way useful. Take care and see you soon.